all the Ohtani hype around the Dodgers is justified, and it's being celebrated in certain parts of Southern California. It's not being celebrated so much in Canada.
I love Canada.
I know you do. I know you do. And they love you. But what they don't love is the fact that they finished among the runners-up in the Ohtani sweepstakes. Ben Nicholson-Smith is the baseball editor up at Sportsnet. He has written about this. He has podcasted about this episode, joining us to take some time on Hot Stove. Ben, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
We're doing okay. Is the disappointment that we're kind of guessing in Canada real, or are fans ready to turn the page on this drama?
I don't think they're ready to turn the page yet at all. It was such a tough ending to the season, first of all, for the Jays, as you guys remember, losing to the Twins in 2 games. And then beyond that, it didn't really seem like Ohtani was that likely of a possibility going into the offseason. But then as things progressed, it became clear that they really were pushing and seemed to be, if not a runner-up, then certainly a finalist for Ohtani, only to lose out to the Dodgers at the last minute. So it I think, will take a while for Jays fans to really recover from this one, because Ohtani's such a special player. You don't get many chances at a guy like this.
Yeah, and Ben, the one thing that stands out, you know, if the excuse was, well, they didn't get there financially, then you know what? Then you got problems, right? But they got there, it sounds like, financially. They were made enough offer to make this happen. That's got to add a little more sting, but it also gives them a lot of credibility in the front office. How do you view that?
Yeah, I heard that their final offer to Ohtani was right there with what the Dodgers offered. Now, we have since learned that the Dodgers had a ton of deferrals in there, likely would have included deferrals in any deal with the Blue Jays as well. But the Blue Jays were willing to spend. They had a huge amount of money. I don't know the exact number, but they were willing to go to a very high level, close to where the Dodgers were, to get Ohtani. But of course, part of the privilege of being a free agent is he gets to choose, and it's hard to fault the guy for choosing the team that's gone to the playoffs 11 consecutive years. And even if he did give the Blue Jays serious consideration, which everything that I've been told certainly gives me the impression that he was seriously considering the Blue Jays, it's hard to fault the guy for choosing a team that is so good in the LA Dodgers.
Well, you know, he lived in Newport, played for the Angels all those years, so he's familiar with Southern California. The Blue Jays took him to Dunedin, Florida, to their spring training complex. What would you have done if you would have brought him to Toronto? What would you have shown him or tried to convince him about the city of Toronto?
You know, it's a great question. And I think part of it would be showing him that he could experience life there without necessarily being hounded at every single venue, restaurant, gym that he would go to. I do think that, you know, we saw on Friday, there was a huge amount of attention on Shohei Ohtani potentially arriving in Toronto. So it's not like he would have just walked around unnoticed. He's obviously 6'4", 250 or whatever it is, and a very recognizable person. But I think at the same time, there would have been a chance to show him you can live, relatively speaking, a quote-unquote normal lifestyle here. The stadium right now, as you guys know, is undergoing some real renovations. So it's not like you could really show him around Rogers Center, because it's basically torn up, and it's a construction site at this point in time. So that couldn't really be part of the tour. But take him to some nice restaurants, maybe try to impress upon him through guys like Yusei Kikuchi, who went to high school or went to the same high school as Ohtani in Japan. Maybe speak to the cultural experience as a Japanese player in Toronto. But ultimately, I'm sure the Blue Jays tried everything they could. This was an organizational-wide effort for them, and he was clearly their top priority this offseason. But it just didn't work, and the Dodgers were able to get that done.
I'm sure they tried to get him up there. Instead, they had to, you know, they took him to Dunedin and showed him the new complex, and then took him to have like soft foods buffet at Luby's or Bennigan's at 3:30 with the seniors. I don't know if that was the greatest recruiting trip, but, you know, hey, looking back, you know, probably was going to sign with the Dodgers anyway. So let me ask you this, Ben. If we get off of the Ohtani conversation and look forward to what the Jays are going to accomplish this winter, we've been told they're sitting on this mountain of Labatt's blue money for decades, right? They're ready to spend. They're ready to spend. On whom do they spend it? Where is that check going to be written this winter?
It's a great question. And I actually think that the Ohtani money was kind of a one of. Like, I don't think they necessarily have $700 million to go spend on someone else right now, because there was so much involvement from ownership to get that one, you know, to the point that they did. But I do think that they're a team that has a lot of needs. I mean, that's pretty clear. They've lost 6 free agents, and they haven't replaced them. So This is a team that wasn't necessarily good enough at the end of last season. Now you lose 6 free agents and you spend the first month of your winter pursuing a guy who ends up in the LA Dodgers. Yeah, you can see them right there. That's a lot of talent that the Blue Jays have lost. So they need to start replacing that talent now. They need to go out and acquire really offensive players, needs to be their priority because they do have a lot of pitching. And I don't know that they're going to spend $250 million on Cody Bellinger. I just don't see that happening, despite the aggressiveness on the Ohtani front. But they like Bellinger. They like a lot of players out there. They're going to be active in free agency. I have no doubt that they're going to spend and land a couple of free agents, but that might be, maybe it's a Rhys Hoskins, maybe it's a JD Martinez or a Jorge Soler, as opposed to the big marquee names.
Still a chance, as we've talked about, for a few of the teams that missed out on Ohtani, for them to be better this winter if the agenda is met with other players. Ben Nicholson-Smith, baseball editor at Sportsnet, joining us on the Tuesday Stove. We appreciate the visit. Thanks for the Canadian perspective on this sweepstakes, and we'll reach back out to you soon when the Jays sign one of these big-ticket guys.